Welcome to our first webinar in 2023. Today we will be talking about ISO 27001, the new version 2022 that was just published, and we'll be talking about information security, cybersecurity, and privacy protection. We're really excited today to have Jim Nelson. He is the BCS president, the I-Corps board chair, and an Intertech auditor. He's joining us today in the middle of an audit that he's doing. He's taking a little lunch break and providing this information to you. He is a business continuity and ICT continuity consultant. He's also a lead auditor for several standards, and he's an expert member of ISO Technical Committee 292, which is an international standard committee focused on continuity and resilience. Our objectives today are to help you understand the role of the different standards in the 27000 series, also to learn about the requirements of this new standard and the changes to Annex A, and how you might transition from the 2013 version to the 2022 version. As always, the recording of the webinar will be available on the webinar page in a day or two. We encourage you to ask questions. Please use the questions button, and then at the end of the webinar, we will have time to reply to your answers. And if we reply to your questions, and if we run out of time, we will follow up with those answers to your questions in the email after the webinar. To receive your certificate of attendance, you do need to attend at least 35 minutes. So we're going to start off with a poll. And the first poll that we'd like you to answer is really which of the following best describes your experience in 2022? Your company experienced more than one data breach, or you didn't experience any data breach, or you don't really have any idea. Maybe you're not part of that system to know. When we do our polls today, we're going to have them open for about 15 seconds. So it looks like we have about 66% of you voting. So if you could, the last few of you could go ahead and vote. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share it with you. So interestingly enough, more than half of you have not experienced any data breach. Then about a third of you don't know, so that's interesting. And about 16% of you have experienced one or more data breaches. So I'm going to pass this over to Jim as the presenter, and he's going to take over from here. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to hide the poll results now so that we can see his. All right, Jim, we can hear you clicking. There you go.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks for coming out to play, whichever time zone, region of the world that you're in. And this is some general information. I do anticipate maybe we have some participants and attendees that have deep expertise on the topic, and maybe some folks with some general awareness, and maybe some folks that are looking to learn. So what are we talking about? To oversimplify a little bit, information security. We're talking about confidentiality. And you can read the description that's on there, but really having a need to know or visibility or access to different information or data. And the second issue that we're always striving towards in information and cybersecurity is keeping the integrity of the documents, forms, data, etc. So they cannot be manipulated. And then finally is availability. And simply said, I'll allow you to read the slides, is the people that have approval or access or a need to know have the ability to access their documentation as needed without any issues or compromises. And for the folks that spend a lot of time around data security, you get used to using the first three letters, CIA, which stands for the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And not so much one of those non-government organizations. So that's always a fun point. So in my experience over several years, some people know that there's a standard out there, an ISO standard. In this case, we're talking about the 27001 requirements and any guidance that goes along with that. So as you see on the slide, and I'll come and talk about that, but there is an extensive family of related standards. And many of those are either updated or in the process of being updated. So they're consistent and aligned and support with 27001. And that 27001 is the requirements standard. Many others are guidance and supporting. So most organizations that achieve certification, if you are so inclined to go that route, are very familiar with 27001, and note here 2022. I'll touch on this a few times during this slide presentation. So the current version, quote around the terms, air quotes around current version, is from 2013. So the 2022 version of the requirements for ease of use for the Americans or Westerners or anyone familiar with Halloween, which is the end of October, that is on or near the official publishing date of 27001. And then we'll talk later in the presentation of timing, 3 years, how long the previous version is available. Okay. Associated with that, there are also many organizations that are either using, sorry about that, I hit the wrong button, good, either using, to the right, top right-hand side in the gray area, you see 27701. And in simple terms, that's really another buzzword, an acronym, PII, and it's privacy information. Many different terms and acronyms are used around that. So that is of interest to many organizations. Then we have guidance. So as you see, 27002 with the date behind as 2022 was also published last year, about 11 months ago. It was published in February of 2022, and it is very closely aligned with the requirements, 27001 immediately above that. And we'll talk about what the implications of these updates, modification, and publication are. There are also some related guidance document, and I'm not going to list and talk about every single guidance document or standard or technical paper that's related. I just selected a few on guidance. So 27005 gives you some guidance on managing information security and cyber-related risks. And there is also, and this is being utilized by many more organizations and becoming more prominent, which is the 27008. And that is also being aligned and talked about a little bit. So I'm not going to speak And this is not going to be a webinar talking in specific details on every one of those requirements, just giving you information, overviews, and details. Then one of the drivers in making sure that this standard was as current and applicable as possible was making sure that, quote, cloud-based issues were included and highlighted. And many organizations, as you can imagine, since 2013, there has been significant changes as people have moved to one flavor of the cloud or not, and the cloud being moving from off premises to a vendor or your own version, private cloud, or a hybrid version. So there's some cloud specific items, and some of those are being updated also, and you'll see some crossover here. So the middle one in the gray in the bottom, 27008 and 018. So 27018 also crosses over to sensitive or identifiable personal information, PIMS, PII, whether it's in healthcare, finance, or carriers, and how that should be treated in, quote, public clouds, or someone, whether it's Azure, IBM, AWS, et cetera, local clouds, there's more and more versions of those. Okay. There's also to the far right, 27036, Part 4, has some guidelines for security of cloud services, just as an introduction there to give you a sense that there's a whole lot of standards in the 27,000 family, plus some related standards that are outside of the 27,000 family of standards. That being said, jumping up to 5,000 feet or a quick overview. On the left-hand side is a screen reflection of the 2013 version of the standard. On the right, you can see the reflection is on the 2022 version. One key, look bottom left, information technology, security techniques. I'll pause there. Look on the right side, information security, cybersecurity, and privacy protection. So reading by that, you can see changes in the title reflect the intent of changes within the standard itself. So an expansion is moving from security techniques to information security, cyber security, and privacy protection. So on the left-hand side is a face copy or cover copy of the 27001 most recent publication, again, Halloween of 2022, end of October. There are some minor changes to clauses 4 through 10. People familiar with ISO standards realize, especially the risk-based standards, that is normally what you are audited to on clause 4 through 10. This is important for the people that are already certified, considering when they transition, which we'll speak about later. They normally have had some experience with Annex A. And Annex A requires a statement of applicability. And in there, there's a whole set of numbers and controls in the 2013 version, Annex A5, ranging all the way up to Annex 18 that we're talking about, and a number of controls. In the current version, the number of controls in this Annex A also in your statement of applicability has been reduced. There are less specific controls. Moving down to 93 controls, the Annex A has been restructured also, and those have been broken into 4 sections, which we'll see in the following slides, which is a significant difference. And I do believe that it will be an improvement moving forward. The reason this is being highlighted a little bit, if you are currently certified, thinking about it, or aligned to, you will need to review and rework your statement of applicability. In addition, there are 11 new controls added into Annex A. And those, I think, you'll find represent current state and their extreme value of just the world we live in and how it's changed since 2013. There are some editorial changes and new requirements. Part of that is a numbering structure has been modified to align with ISO rules and consistency. So I'll stop for a moment and just say, for those organizations that are currently certified to one or more standards, whether it's 9,000 is popular, 27,000, 20,000, 22301, 14, etc., the risk-based standards. Okay. This has been nicely aligned and consistent from clause 4.2.10, so they are exploring the same content. In the requirements for 27,001, most current version, one clause or subclause actually has been added, talking about planning for changes. That was inferred previously, now it is distinctly called out. Also, other editorial changes and new requirements bring that in alignment to a process-based approach. Define the processes that are needed to implement your management system. ISMS is short for Information Security Management System. And it also asks you to establish criteria for operational processes and how you will implement the control of those processes. There's also more emphasis on the communication. And part of that new emphasis and clarity is a newer updated requirement to communicate roles that are relevant to information security, cybersecurity, etc. And more importantly, how to share, communicate, and receive IS or information security related information. Part of the purpose of these updates, 27,000 is one of the quote risk-based standards in the ISO suite of standards. And the drive, as most organizations are aware of, is risk management should spread across all organizational functions. And the requirements as you move forward should reflect current security challenges that we all face, or certain specific challenges that you might face based upon your sector and your business. And the updates are intended to make it easier or more efficient to be able to map, cross-map, and implement the appropriate and proper set of security controls. let's talk about that Annex A a little bit. Okay, so the Annex A structure of the 2013 version had 14 domains. So people that are familiar with it, it started with Annex A5, and counting forward went into Annex A18. These have been reviewed and consolidated. Look at those last 4 words in this line. Consolidated to 4 key areas. Part of that, one of those 4 key areas are what belongs to organizational responsibilities or the enterprise or the firm itself. And a little bit of information, this first key area of 4 is all captured in A5. And there's 37 controls in the operational areas. And that includes things like policies, cloud service use, assets. Then the second of the 4 key areas is people related, and that's under Annex A6. And there's 8 controls in there. Clearly remote work. We did have a history of remote capability work for an extended period of time, but over the last now getting near 3 years, due to COVID, etc., remote work has become more of a mainstream in many organizations. And treatment of confidentiality, execution in here would be items such as non-disclosures that may be required on an individual employee or contractor or resource basis. And people issues is screening. Okay. The third of 4 key areas, and I'm just taking time to emphasize these very slowly on this slide, because 14 domains to 4 is a significant change. So the third of the 4 key areas is physical, and that's under A7 in that Annex A structure. Examples of physical, as you can see, there are 14 controls. So security monitoring, storage of media, maintenance activities, security of your facility, data center, office space, home office, etc. And then another large lion's share of the 4 key areas are grouped into technology or technological. And again, that's the new A8. And there's 34 controls in that area. So out of the 90 some, this is about a third, as you would expect. And there's a little bit of emphasis, of course, on authentication, encryption, any kind of data leak. So at the bottom of the screen in the red banner, you say, the intention of these changes is to make the standard easier to understand, digest, direct, and more efficient and simpler to be able understood by the end reader, customer, and to implement. So moving forward, I gave you the very high level overview. So let's talk about changes to controls. Reiterating top left of your screen, they have been reduced from 114 to 93. Of these, top right-hand portion of your screen, 35 eventually are unchanged or remain the same. Left-hand side, 57 of these 114 have been merged or consolidated into 24. Right-hand side of your screen, 23 of these controls have been renamed. Left hand, third level down, there are 11 new ones. Right hand side of your screen, one of these has been split and divided into 2 controls. So a note on the bottom. While several of the Annex A controls have been renamed or merged to reduce the total number of controls, and this is highlighted in italics, the requirements within those controls are almost all the same or very similar. And a significant or biggest change has been the addition, again, as I referred to, of 11 new controls. And those have been added to reflect changes since the official publication in 2013 to now, and to also reflect new and evolving issues around security and security cyber concerns and areas. I would love to say this is a simple chart, but I think it's a powerful chart. Starting on the left is the 2013 controls. These would have been the Annex A and the items that you put in your statement of applicability. So you see they range from 6, some were in 7, some were in 8, some were in A9, some were in 15, etc. The second row talks to the 2020 true control categories. So that category is all of these are brought into number 5. I'll just take a moment. Number 5, I'm going to reverse slide, so don't get dizzy. I'm going to go back and pause there. So the 4 key areas: organization, people, physical, and technological. That's what we're tying to. I'm going to now advance the slides. And sorry if I give anybody vertigo, but I wanted to cross-reference that. So the control names from 2013 are in the 3rd column: information security, roles and responsibilities, or segregation of duties, etc. I'm not going to read this entire selection of control sets to you, as you have it on the slide, and you will be able to view this as Linda indicated in the future. Moving to the smaller chart on the right, this helps you to understand what moved from what source to where. So at the top in black where you see 2013 categories, and again in Annex A and your statement of applicability, some of these move from A6, some move from A7, some move from A8, some move from A9, 15, 16, and 18, as you can read. And they've been brought together, consolidated, and placed in the organizational categories. There are 2 additional slides that follow, as you can see in the header. So slide 2, same drill. On the left-hand side, where it says the 2013 controls, these range from A18, which was compliance issue, and across many other of the current 2013 versions. You move 1 column to the right, 2022 control identifiers. That indicates what went into the 4 categories. In this case, some are organizational, some are people, and some are physical. The 3rd column talks about control names. So whether it's protection of records, PII, independent reviews and audits and taking a look at and documenting your procedures, etc. Many of those are in 18, and you can cross-track that by moving to the smaller chart on the right. At the top, it's A18 was compliance in the past. Those have moved to organization. And what was A12, operations, some of these have been moved to 5. A7 was a challenge many organizations had in the past. Annex A7 kind of touched on people and technology also. So the business side, internally, how perhaps you identified business opportunity needs for people, how you screen, pre and onboard them, etc. And then that naturally connects to your ICT or your technology people that would then bring them to life appropriately in the technology system. So a nice way to track this is what got moved from 5, 6, and 7 into physical controls. So this is provided in a way to get you started in cross-mapping and cross-identifying. Let's move to the third one. Okay. These are the remainders, same drill. Far on the left is existing 2013 Annex A again, and ranging from A11 all the way down through the bottom. The next column to the right, same thing, where they got moved to. And most of these, as you can see, either got moved into 7, which is a physical control. So cabling is physically done, or maintaining equipment, or how examples secure. And then the rest are in the 8 category. So as you can see on the smaller chart to the right, some of these 2013 categories got moved to the 2022. And sorry, if you're picking up some background noise, as Linda mentioned, I am out in the field at a client site, and there's some activity going on, and they're improving their systems. Okay, moving forward, use this moving forward. So what are these 11 new controls that I talked about? Some of them are in the organizational area, and you can see those are all A5s. So A5.7 talks about threat and intelligence. A523, information security for the use in the cloud services. And A5.30, ICT or information communication technology readiness for business continuity. In the second category in the middle is the physical category, and that's A7.4, as you can read, but that's the physical security monitoring requirement and how you select and do that at your organization. And finally, technological, as you can see, a good portion of these new controls, all in A8, talk in detail on how you manage your configuration. How do you delete data appropriately? Any kind of data masking or data leakage prevention that may need to be addressed, and how you monitor and do your web filtering, and the need to do secure coding. So these are the 11 new categories, and ponder that as you either head towards certification or as you make the transition to the new standard. There's also a new concept, and I'll just bring through, and there's a concept of control attributes. And it's aligned with some common terminology used within digital security. These 5 attributes in the new standard are control types, number 1. Number 2, information security properties. 3, cybersecurity concepts. Number 4, operational capabilities. And then 5, security domains. The control attributes should or are hopefully provided to enable organizations to understand their current security posture in more detail, but more importantly, to identify and encourage and improve and consider the adoption of security practices and processes that are beneficial to the overall organization. That being said, those will lead to more effective business operations. A few different things. The concept of control attributes, and a few differences here are highlighted in the red bold. Having a purpose for each one control instead of an objective for a group of control. And you can see some of the information compared on the left-hand side, 2013 version, right-hand side. So in the past, information security, just using Annex A5, where that has been modified to on the right hand, these are now organizational controls. And you talk still about policies under 5.1 for information security, but there's some control types. There's information security properties. Remember when we talked about CIA, confidential, integrity, and availability. And then there's also some cybersecurity concepts and operational capabilities, which gets to governments, and then security domains. And as you can see the difference and compare from the left hand from 2013 and the new version, controls, there's a little bit different language, then there's purpose, then there's some guidance that's provided, and some additional information. So your purpose lies in together. Sorry about that, I clicked one slide too quick. And that purpose is huge, so make sure moving forward that you identify, document that, and understand something that's clear and concise. Then we have one other pieces with an example. Right-hand side is an example from A8.8, and that's management of technical vulnerabilities. It's put up for an example. So we have a title. What is the short name? We have that attribute table that we talked about a few slides previous. And that also gives you the ability to show the values of each attribute for the controls. What the control is, of course, what the purpose is, any kind of guidance, how the control should be implemented, halfway down the screen on your right, and then other information. There might be explanatory text or references to similar or other related documents. As you can see in the blue, it might be a little bit small, where it's talking about identifying technical vulnerabilities. There's the first sentence that says the organization should have an accurate inventory of assets, and then it cross-references in parentheses C9, C5.9, and 5.14. So I think that's a benefit to give you a little bit of cross-referencing. There may be some subheadings and some text, and evaluating technical vulnerabilities. What drives some of this? I think we live and are breathing this every day. There's changes that impact not only the business, but information security controls. Many people in facilities or real estate or your property moving from the big office to more of a remote, virtual, or hybrid office. Compute is centralized in the past, maybe on premises, and now it's more and more being moved to the cloud, or versions of the cloud are decentralized. Security with the padlock is a key change, an emphasis point. Defense in depth has become defense in depth and breadth. And the controls finally is control verification requires in-depth knowledge of IT security and emerging technologies. A key sentence at the end of that, a review of just this administrative controls will not be sufficient. You will have findings. And then finally, competence and experience. Things are moving fast, roles are changing, and that's requiring practical hands-on knowledge and expertise to determine how effective your overall approach, strategy, and management system is.
All
Part of
right,
this, I'll hand this back to you, Linda.
yep, we're gonna have you share your thoughts, and they're pretty straightforward. What do you think about the restructure of the controls in Annex A? Do you like it? Do you hate it because you don't like anything to change and now you have more work to do? Or is this not really part of what you do, so you're not really sure? And we'll give you about 5 more seconds to answer. This one shouldn't take too much thought for you. All right. It is interesting. So Jim, I think we lost your slide there. You went somewhere else. But anyways, about let me share the replies. You've got about 63% of you like it, which is great. Only a few of you hate it. That's really amazing because anytime there's a big change like this, usually people are not happy. But about a third of you don't have any idea because it's not part of what you do. And so we hope that you are learning today. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and let Jim continue. But it looks like you lost where you were, Jim, so you might have to go move forward. Hopefully we didn't lose Jim altogether.
Jim is here. I was just waiting because when you're polling, then I had to take the screen back. So sorry that. Good. So we shared our thoughts. That makes some sense. Now we're going to talk about the benefits to adopting an information security management system. I will also put in some information and some thoughts about what is a growing trend, and it is generally, or Jim and many auditors refer to it as an IMS also, which is an integrated management systems, which is down the road for some organizations, current practices for others. Integrated management systems may be the value of more than one management systems and combining those. So, while we talk about benefits of adopting an IMS, of course, we always need to prepare that. Let me go back to full screen. Okay. It allows you to anticipate, identify, prevent, react, contain, all good things, and manage potential events. So here's just some example. So on the first one, cybercrime is big business. And this is cited and resource that you can check and validate on your own. If it was measured as a country, according to Boardroom Cybersecurity Report, then cybercrime would be the world's third largest economy, following the United States, USA, and China. That's an amazing and concerning issue. Then Gartner has looked out and predict over the next year or two, we're in 2023, that by 2024, many more enterprises will adopt cloud delivered secure web gateways, or SWG, or cloud access security broker, or zero trust network, or branch office firewalls as a service to continue to harden, protect their organization. Furthermore, Gartner predicts that, again, by 2025, about half of the organizations worldwide will have then experienced attack on their software, supply chain, and that's increasing from just a few short years ago. Another benefit of adopting IMS is get you aligned with and compliance with industry standards or privacy laws and regulations. Why is this a benefit? Some different issues. Out of all the quote identified countries in the world, a significant portion of them have some type of legislation addressing and securing the protection of data and privacy. As you can see in the gray boxes, about 75% or 3/4 of countries have legislation. An additional 10% have some kind of draft legislation that they're working on. And you can read the numbers. 15% of countries don't have any legislation, but then you factor in also there's certain countries that really don't have much data to deal with. Okay, moving forward, benefits adopting an IMS. Information and your investment that can be controlled and deployed. You know what you're spending, where and how, and track it and engage management. There's a justification. This also drives across your board, across your organization, enterprise integrated alignment to how you manage risk and how that supports your strategic endeavors and capabilities. It also defines accountabilities and responsibilities both throughout, top to bottom, and across the organization. And then additional benefits, including continuing to mature and progress the Enterprise Information Security Privacy Awareness Training Program, and maturing and developing and becoming much more competent with controls and capability. That allows you to be able to track and ensure that you're spending money or investing or allocating resources in a more efficient way to protect any exposures across the organization. So the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit, if you're currently certified, what does the timeline look like? And I will put a caveat in here. There are a few variables depending where you're at, who your certifying body or registrar is, and where it is registered in which country. Okay, so again, as we can see, ISO 27001 was published last Halloween. Generally, there's a 3-year cycle, okay? When you get to an anniversary date from 2022 out through October 23, in the 1 year, you should be thinking about, depending on your assessing body, do you need to make a move, okay? That you can either choose to renew or move to 2023. That's a gentle hint to consider. If you're already certified, start to think about, start working on it now. Don't wait until the 11th hour. At a point, and we need to tweak these dates a little bit, in year 2026, all new audits moving forward will be to the 2022 version. So let me clarify what you're seeing on the screen and we'll edit it up a little bit. Generally, the rules are you have 3 years once a standard is published to make the transition to the new standard. And that old version then becomes no longer valid, out of date, and your certificate is also out of date. So generally think about 2 or 3 years. My ongoing recommendation on there is don't wait until year 2.5 or 3, because you will be caught in a potential traffic jam and resource contention in getting your third-party auditors and getting that processed against everyone else making their moves, and the bandwidth or capabilities from the certifying bodies, the registers, and the national accrediting bodies. So here's some guidance on transitioning from 2013 to the new. Take a good look and update your risk treatment plan and make sure you're aligning what you have currently with the new structure and numbering of controls. I allude to, but I'll state, take a look at your statement of applicability, because Annex A 5 to 18 is going to change. So review and update that, take a look at the good work you've done, get it properly aligned and documented. Third step, review and update your IMS management review procedures to make sure it is current and aligned with the current standard and requirements and effective. Fourth step, review and update your information security objectives and how you monitor, measure, analyze, and evaluate those procedures. Emphasis is intentional. Number 5, take a good look at what you're doing now on your communication plan around the IMS and get it revised and updated. Number 6, make sure you review and update any other policies, standards, procedures, work instructions, etc. Step number 7, if you have third-party tools, things that you hired on or resources or subscribe to, whether they're on-prem or software as service, to make sure you are demonstrating compliance and they're aligned with these requirements. Share your thoughts. Back to Linda for a second.
All right, we're going to launch our final poll here. And so, what is your certification status? My guess is that there's not going to be as many of you certified to the standard based on the information that you've shared about some people having less knowledge than others here. We'll give you about 5 more seconds to answer this. So are you currently certified? Are you just implementing the requirements without seeking certification? Is this something you're looking to do in the future, or is not, you're not interested in being certified at all? I'm going to go ahead and close that and share the results. It looks like 56% are not interested in becoming certified, and this is not unusual. We see that with organizations globally, and in some countries you see that number higher. In the U.S., we tend to see seeing that on the lower end, where outside of the U.S. You have more regulations with this. The next highest one is looking to become certified, so this should hopefully get you started to start thinking about that. And we would hope that even if you're not looking at being certified, that you would start to implement some of these requirements just to protect your organization completely. So I will pass that back to Jim, and this is the opportunity where you can ask questions. So use the questions button to do that. And I'll give you, I don't see any questions coming in yet, so we'll give it a second. Any advice, Jim, that you have based while we're waiting for questions, based on some of the audits and things that you've been doing as far as what are the most common questions people have?
Okay, that breaks into three categories. Okay, and I'll just be simple. If folks are new to this and seeking, quote, certification, you have a decision. Do you want to do it now to the 2013 version if you've not completed your certification? Or do you want to maybe discuss with your registrar and say, let's go right to 2022, then I don't have to do the transition of standards. That's huge. So timing, but of course that's unique to situations. Have you made commitments? Do you have business drivers, etc.? Then second, as a general rule, and this is very unscientific, organizations that are certified to 27001, but they have not reached their recertification yet. So maybe the stage 1, stage 2, have surveillance 1 or surveillance 2, for example, but haven't done the 3-year recert. They spend a whole lot of additional time because you're not, maybe generally, and I'm oversimplifying, you may not have the internal depth expertise and resources that can work with this. And generally, my expectation is if you've been certified for a while to 27001, you should be well on your way and start working forward to that. So it's kind of self-assess your current state, what you're trying to achieve, and the maturity of your management system. Also consider if you have other standards such as 9000 with ISO or 22301, 14000, risk-based standards, how can you then modify your overall integrated management or combined management systems? And what tweaks do you need to make? And finally, drive towards, at some point in the future, if you have multiple management systems, look for an integrated audit if that makes sense to save you some time and resources. Linda, I thought you were mentioning one more.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions coming in, so why don't we go ahead and wrap up if you want to move to the next slide.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. So,
Just
do
to
you want
let
to
you
take
know,
this, Linda?
we have these different education and certification programs. We don't teach specifically to 27001. We do teach to many other things, but because there's several organizations that do that very well, we defer to them. If you want to go ahead, Jim. We do invite you to sign up for the rest of our webinar series. This year, we're going to be really focusing on how to manage risk in different aspects. So next month, we'll be talking about managing reputation risk, moving on to our incident response structure, how to manage your data center risk, and so on. And we hope that you can join us for those. And to finish up, we hope that you will connect with us, follow us on YouTube, check out our different blogs, and join our different networks on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great rest of the week.